Everything they taught you about money was designed by someone else, not for you, for them. The advice you got about saving, about your job, about what it means to be middle class, about retiring at 65 and finally living your life, every single piece of it came from somewhere, from someone, from a system that needed you to believe it so the system could keep working. And it worked. Not because you were naive, not because you were not smart enough to question it, because the advice sounded reasonable, because everyone around you believed it too, because the people who gave it to you believed it themselves. That is how the most effective lies work. They do not feel like lies. They feel like common sense. This is not a video about conspiracy theories. This is not a video about the government or secret societies or shadowy figures pulling levers behind curtains. This is a video about 4 things you were taught about money that are quietly working against you. And nobody is going to tell you this at school. Nobody is going to tell you this at work. Nobody is going to tell you this at the bank. So we are going to tell you here. 4 financial lies. The truth behind each one. And what to do instead. You were taught to save. From the moment you understood what money was, the message was consistent. Save. Be responsible. Put money away. Do not spend what you do not have. This is good advice for surviving. It is terrible advice for building wealth. And the difference between those 2 things is the difference between where you are and where you want to be. Here is the truth nobody said out loud. Saving money does not build wealth. Saving money preserves purchasing power, temporarily, while inflation quietly destroys it. In 2024, the average high-yield savings account paid approximately 4.5% interest. Inflation that year ran at approximately 3.4%. The real return on your savings, after inflation, was roughly 1.1%. You worked, you sacrificed, you said no to things you wanted, and the reward was 1.1% in real terms. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 returned approximately 24% in the same year. The person who saved $10,000 in a savings account in 2024 ended the year with approximately $10,450 in real purchasing power. The person who invested $10,000 in an index fund ended the year with approximately $12,400. Same starting amount, same 12 months, $1,950 difference, every year, compounding. But here is where the lie gets more complicated. It is not just that saving underperforms investing. It is that the savings habit, the psychological comfort of watching a number grow in a bank account, actively prevents people from investing. The savings account feels safe. The market feels scary. So people save instead of invest and call it being responsible. They are not being responsible. They are being comfortable. And comfort in finance almost always has a hidden cost. The truth is not that you should not save. You should. An emergency fund is not optional. 3 to 6 months of expenses in a liquid account is the foundation everything else is built on. But once that foundation exists, every additional dollar sitting in a savings account is a dollar choosing safety over growth, choosing the feeling of security over the mathematics of wealth. Your grandparents built wealth through home ownership and pensions, systems that forced appreciation and long-term holding. Those systems are largely gone now. The savings account was never meant to replace them. It was meant to complement them. You were given the complement and told it was the strategy. That is the first lie. You were told to get a good job, a stable one, with benefits, with a salary that arrives every 2 weeks regardless of what the world is doing outside. This is security. This is what responsible adults do. This is the foundation you build everything else on. Here is the truth. Your job is the single most financially fragile position you can occupy. Not because jobs are bad, not because employment is wrong, but because of what a job actually is and what it means for your financial life. A job is a single income stream controlled entirely by someone else. One decision, made in a boardroom you have never entered, by people who do not know your name, based on factors that have nothing to do with your performance, and your income goes to zero. In 2023 alone, more than 260,000 tech workers were laid off across major companies. Engineers with 10 years of experience, managers with spotless records, people who did everything right, gone, in an email, sometimes without warning. Your job does not care how hard you work. Your job does not care about your mortgage. Your job does not care that you just had a child, or that your parents need help, or that you have been loyal for 11 years. Your job cares about the quarterly numbers, and when the quarterly numbers require a reduction in headcount, the reduction happens. This is not cynicism. This is the legal and structural reality of employment in most countries. But here is the part that makes it a lie. The job was sold to you as security. The word was used deliberately. Security implies protection, stability, a foundation that holds. What you actually have is a single point of failure. In engineering, a system with a single point of failure is considered fragile by definition. No competent engineer builds critical infrastructure on a single point of failure. You would not build a bridge that collapses if one cable snaps. But that is exactly what most people do with their financial lives. One job, one income stream, one decision by someone else away from financial crisis. The wealthy do not live this way, not because they do not work. Many of them work extraordinarily hard, but their income comes from multiple streams: investments, business ownership, real estate, royalties, each stream independent of the others. If one fails, the others continue. The goal was never to have a good job. The goal was always to build a system where no single decision by another person could collapse your financial life. You were not taught to build the system. You were taught to get the job. And the job is not security. The job is a single thread holding everything up. That is the second lie. Your entire childhood, the message was clear. Go to school, get a good job, buy a house, have a family, take a vacation once a year, retire eventually. This is success. This is what a good life looks like. This is what you're supposed to want. It has a name: the middle class. And for most of the 20th century, it worked. In 1970, a single income could support a family of 4, fund a mortgage, pay for college, and provide a comfortable retirement. The middle class was a real destination with real rewards. Here is what happened to that destination. Between 1970 and 2024, housing prices increased by approximately 2,000% in real terms. College tuition increased by over 1,700%. Healthcare costs increased by over 2,600%. Meanwhile, real wages, adjusted for inflation, grew by approximately 17% over the same period. The destination did not move. The cost of reaching it grew by 2,000%, while the money available to reach it grew by 17%. The middle class was not destroyed. It was priced out from underneath the people standing on it. And here is the part nobody says. The middle class lifestyle, the house, the 2 cars, the annual vacation, the private school, the retirement plan, now requires upper middle class income to sustain. The gap between what the middle class lifestyle costs and what middle class income provides is filled by debt, credit cards, home equity loans, car financing, student loans for the next generation. Buy now, pay later for the groceries. The middle class did not disappear. It went into debt to keep existing. You were told the middle class was the goal. Nobody told you the price of the goal had been quietly inflated beyond what the goal could afford. The people who understood this early did not try harder to reach the middle class. They changed the goal entirely. They stopped optimizing for the lifestyle and started optimizing for the assets. The house not as a home first, but as an appreciating asset. The income not as a salary first, but as a vehicle for ownership. The career not as the destination, but as the funding mechanism for the real strategy. The middle class is not a financial strategy. The middle class is a lifestyle template built for an economy that no longer exists. You were handed the template. Nobody told you the economy changed. That is the third lie. You're 25. You start your first real job. Someone in HR sits you down and explains the retirement plan. You contribute a percentage. The company matches a percentage. In 40 years, you will have enough to stop working. 40 years. You do the math. You will be 65. You nod. You sign the form. Here is what nobody said in that meeting. The concept of retirement at 65 was not designed for you. It was not designed around human well-being or the natural arc of a meaningful life. It was designed in 1935 when the Social Security Act was passed, and the average American life expectancy was 61 years. The retirement age was set above the average life expectancy. The system was designed expecting that most people would never reach it. The ones who did were expected to collect benefits for a few years before dying. That system, designed for a world where 65 was beyond average life expectancy, is the system you are still being told to plan around. Except now, the average life expectancy is 76. And you will collect benefits for 11 years instead of dying before you reach the threshold. The system was not updated for your life. It was updated for the government's budget. But here is the deeper lie. Retirement at 65 does not just fail financially for many people. It fails existentially. The research on retirement and well-being is consistent and largely ignored. Studies from the National Bureau of Economic Research show that retirement increases the probability of depression by 40% and the probability of diagnosed physical illness by 60%. The years between 65 and 75, the decade most people spend their entire career saving for, are the years most retirement portfolios are depleted fastest. The combination of healthcare costs, inflation, sequence of returns risk, and the psychological collapse that comes from losing structured purpose destroys both the money and the person simultaneously. You were told to delay your life for 40 years and then live it. But a life delayed is not a life saved. It is a life spent. The people who figured this out did not work less. They worked differently. They took the trips at 34, not 74. They built income streams that did not require their presence. They structured their work around meaning, not just money. They did not wait for permission from a retirement account balance to start living. They rejected the idea that the reward for 40 years of sacrifice is a decade of declining health and depleted savings. They built the life while building the wealth, not instead of financial planning. Alongside it, better financial planning, earlier financial freedom, less life deferred. The retirement at 65 model asks you to give your best years to an employer and your remaining years to a doctor. Nobody presented you with an alternative. That is the fourth lie. 4 lies, all of them taught with good intentions, all of them believed by the people who passed them on, all of them quietly working against the life you were trying to build. Saving instead of investing, one job instead of multiple income streams, the middle-class lifestyle instead of asset ownership, retirement at 65 instead of financial freedom built now. None of this is your fault. You were handed a map. You followed it. The map was drawn for a different territory. The territory changed. The map did not. Here is what you do now. You stop optimizing for the map. You start looking at the actual territory. The territory says cash savings lose to inflation. Invest the surplus. The territory says a single income stream is a single point of failure. Build another one. Then another. The territory says the middle-class lifestyle costs more than middle-class income. Stop funding the lifestyle with debt. Start funding assets with income. The territory says 40 years is too long to wait. Start building financial freedom now, not instead of working, alongside it. Better and earlier. None of this is easy. None of this happens in one decision, or 1 month, or 1 year. But it starts with one thing. Questioning the map you were given. You already did that. You're already ahead of where you were before this video started. That is not nothing. That is exactly where it begins.